The battle for my garage, a suburban conspiracy unraveled. I never imagined that buying my dream home would lead to finding two $80,000 trucks parked in my garage, trucks that weren't mine. Worse, I wasn't even part of the HOA that orchestrated this invasion. This is the story of how one woman's obsession with control turned my quiet suburban life into a war zone, exposing a real estate scam that shook our neighborhood to its core. After years of pinching pennies in cramped apartments with landlords who treated leaky faucets like optional chores, I, Daniel Harper, finally bought my slice of paradise, a 3-bedroom craftsman just outside the boundaries of Crestwood Estates, a neighborhood notorious for its iron-fisted HOA. The previous owners showed me property maps confirming my freedom from their endless rules about grass height and mailbox designs. For 2 months, life was bliss. I planted heirloom tomatoes, painted my front door a vibrant red, and settled into my work-from-home routine. Then came the neighborhood's annual barbecue, where I met Margaret Ellison, HOA president for over a decade and a realtor whose polished suits screamed authority. Margaret cornered me by the coleslaw, her martini glass glinting as she scanned my property like a hawk. "You're the new owner at 415 Maple Lane, right? Your landscaping is bold. I'd love to discuss our community standards," she said, her smile as cold as winter. When I explained my home wasn't part of Crestwood, her laugh was sharp. "That's a misunderstanding we're correcting. Your property was always meant to be ours." I brushed it off, but 3 weeks later, I returned from grocery shopping to find my garage door open and 2 massive Ford Raptors parked inside, my Prius banished to the driveway. Shock turned to fury as I checked my security footage. There was Margaret, using a remote to open my garage and directing the trucks with the precision of a traffic cop. I stormed to the Crestwood clubhouse, where she sat behind a desk piled with violation notices, her assistant, Cynthia, scowling beside her. "Why are you breaking into my garage?" I demanded. Margaret barely looked up. "We're hosting the Crestwood Garden Tour, Daniel. Those trucks belong to regional HOA dignitaries. They're unsightly on our streets, so we've relocated them to non-featured properties. You should be honored to help maintain our standards." When I reminded her I wasn't in her HOA, she waved a dismissive hand. "That's an administrative error we're fixing. The trucks stay until the tour ends tomorrow." She handed me a card for Crestwood Parking Services and shooed me out, adding, "Trim your hedges to 36 inches, per our guidelines." Rage simmering, I called the police. Officer Bennett arrived, sighed at another Crestwood dispute, and reviewed my footage. "This is a civil matter unless we prove criminal intent," he said, advising me to document everything and consult a lawyer. Tow companies refused to help, warned off by Margaret. Desperate, I tracked down the truck owners through their vanity plates, Big Boss and Trickstar. They were mortified, having paid Margaret $75 each for secure HOA storage, and retrieved their vehicles by noon. But the harassment didn't stop. A Crestwood welcome packet arrived, complete with a 120-page rulebook, a $300 dues bill, and a map falsely showing my home within HOA boundaries. Violation notices followed, citing my house numbers, fruit trees, and unauthorized security cameras. Margaret even used photos of my home in her real estate listings, touting it as part of her exclusive HOA community. Then, one morning, I found landscapers digging up my apple and pear trees, claiming they attracted pests. Margaret arrived in her SUV, sunglasses perched atop her head. "These trees violate our guidelines, Daniel. They're an eyesore." When I pointed to my "No HOA jurisdiction" signs, she snapped, "Your defiance threatens property values. This community has ways of dealing with problem residents." I stood between the crew and my trees, phone recording, and threatened police action. After a tense standoff, Margaret ordered the crew to leave, but not before 2 trees were ruined. That night, I broke down in my kitchen, surrounded by fake fines and legal documents, wondering if my dream home was a mistake. But surrender wasn't an option. I upgraded my security with rolling code garage openers and night vision cameras, learning I wasn't alone. Other, border, homeowners faced similar harassment. Enter Laura Mitchell, a real estate attorney who'd moved into Crestwood and noticed discrepancies in her own property records. She revealed Margaret had exploited a never-approved boundary amendment to claim authority over border homes. "It's fraud, but she's buried it in paperwork," Laura said. My neighbor, Tom, shared internal HOA emails proving Margaret knew my home wasn't hers but pushed psychological pressure to force compliance. The emails detailed a shell company, Elite Community Services, run by Margaret's husband, Robert, a corporate lawyer. It had siphoned $30,000 in parking fees and $80,000 in vague consulting payments from HOA funds. Tom's cameras also caught Margaret stealing electricity from the clubhouse for her personal greenhouse. Laura and I launched a website, Crestwood Exposed, posting footage, emails, and homeowner testimonies. Residents shared stories of intimidation, from fake liens to intercepted packages. A former treasurer, Helen, revealed Margaret's control over garden tour funds, a $20,000 annual cash cow. The site went viral in the neighborhood, but Margaret hit back with a $15,000 defamation lawsuit, which Laura dismissed as bluster. Then, an anonymous tip pointed us to the tour's financials, uncovering Elite Community Services' role in diverting funds. The showdown came at an emergency HOA meeting, packed with residents and a city council observer, Councilwoman Rivera. I presented my case: footage of Margaret's garage break-in, package theft, and tree vandalism, emails admitting her fraud, and financial records tracing the money trail. As I spoke, Tom projected live footage of Margaret trying to disable his camera, catching her red-handed stealing power. The room gasped. Laura announced lawsuits against Margaret for fraud and harassment, warning board members of liability. Robert, breaking ranks, admitted, "It started as community pride, then became control, then fraud. I enabled it too long." Margaret tried to adjourn the meeting, but the crowd roared, "No!" Votes followed. Margaret was ousted as president, an independent audit was approved, and border properties were officially excluded from HOA control. Councilwoman Rivera pledged a city review and referred Margaret's real estate practices to the state commission. Within weeks, Margaret and Robert fled, their homes sold to escape lawsuits. The audit uncovered more fraud, securing restitution for residents. Tom became HOA president, vowing transparency and community over control. My Trees Thrived, featured in the next garden tour by choice, and a new neighborhood association replaced Crestwood's tyranny with gardens and inclusive events. 6 months later, I hosted a barbecue in my yard, surrounded by Laura's wildflowers, Helen's roses, and my fruit trees. The invisible wall between HOA and non-HOA homes was gone. Officer Bennett, off duty, flipped burgers with Tom, joking about fewer calls from our street. "Good fences make good neighbors," Tom said, handing me a plate. "But no fences make a community." My dream home was finally mine, not just a house, but a place where I belong. What do you think? Have you faced bullies or injustice in your community? Share your stories in the comments and take a stand. Let's debate how we confront power and build better neighborhoods together.